Hey everybody, good afternoon. Jason here from AV Pro Edge and Murideo. Today's webinar is going to be excellent. We've got a couple of special guests here with us today from the Imaging Science Foundation. We have the founder, Joel Silver, and calibrator extraordinaire who has been around since the very beginning of this all, Kevin Miller. You guys there? Can you hear me all right?
Absolutely.
I am here. Joel speaking. Kevin, you with us?
Kevin is here, yes. Good to
Great,
see you.
guys. So we wanted to do this kind of four-part series with everybody to kind of get to know a little bit more about the ISF, and this particular call today is going to be more about the history of the company, why you guys felt a need to found the company in the first place. We'll kind of take a little trip down memory lane. We've got some really cool slides and old pictures to show you guys, some old gear and things like that. Each session that we do here in this series is going to be a little bit of a different topic, but this is sort of just an introduction, so we wanted to have a little bit of fun with it and talk to Kevin and Joel since they've been around pretty much the longest. We do have a question box here, guys, so if you have any specific questions for Joel or Kevin or myself, feel free to type those questions in and I'll do my best at fielding those. So that being said, Joel, take it away.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and Kevin, I'm glad you could join us. Kevin and I started out on the editorial side with magazines. So I've worked with a number of magazines. I'm still on staff with 2 or 3. And in the early days, we were audiophiles with an audio magazine. And one of the most entertaining parts of being with an audio magazine is that you could buy gear for pennies on the dollar. So we were getting paid $1 or $2 a word, which didn't mean too much. But if you managed to get a review of a loudspeaker, and it was a very, very good review, and they sold a bunch of pairs, when you asked if you could keep these speakers, it was generally something either sure or just give us 20 cents on the dollar. So we had the T-shirt that said, "We'll work for gear."
Yeah, that's a good one.
We had lots of gear, and in the middle of all this, we decided to open up the Home Theater magazine.
I thought it was a terms deal. Net, never.
Oh yeah, we didn't want a discount, so we would pay full list, but the terms were intriguing, so that helped quite a bit. And in the middle of all this, we started fooling around with some televisions and video. We said, well, we should probably get some projectors and big panels, and maybe we'll get free video gear too. Not knowing what margins were on video, that never really happened, but we started a video magazine called The Perfect Vision, and we were in a position to talk to manufacturers. Now, Kevin had me calling a number of television manufacturers, and Kevin was my boss in those days. He was the managing editor of one and managing editor of the other, and it was a kind of a strange magazine. It was run by the person, actually, this will be intriguing. We worked for the man who put the word fun into the word dysfunctional. And this was a not intentional nonprofit, but if they had a good month, the guy would go buy a Corvette rather than pay the printer. So I had to get the bank lines. We had to keep them alive, but we were having so much fun. We didn't want them going broke. But talking to manufacturers, we said, okay, let's get a manufacturer's perspective on what a good television is. So Kevin set me up with a number of people he knew, and I met some people at shows, and we started doing interviews as to what was the nature of a good image. And we got fables. We got different stories from different manufacturers. We had one prominent manufacturer tell us specifically, he goes, well, production is done at 6,500 degrees Kelvin, because the guy didn't know anything about physics. There's no such thing as a degree. But he said 6,500 Kelvin is the production standard, and the reproduction standard is 9,300 Kelvin. And I said, well, is that kind of like recording a record at 33 RPM and playing it back at 45? He goes, no, this is different. It's television. And, I said, well, you're going to have to explain that to me, because production and reproduction are mirror images, but he was adamant. So he started to explain to me something about the Asian eye, that the Asian eye needs to have a blue image or it's not happy. So I actually wagered him dinner for 4 of my people and 4 of his people. I said, let's go to an authority higher than us, and I'll prove you dead nuts wrong, because what you're talking about from an engineering standpoint is not intelligent. And he goes, how can you prove it? I go, let's go above our pay level. Let's go talk to the people who make images for a living, and we all pay them every day, and we go to the movie theaters. When you go to a movie theater, is the xenon arc lamp in Asia tuned for the Asian eye, or is it just a xenon arc lamp the same exact color as every xenon arc lamp in 135,000 theaters, because everyone speaks the same language of light? And Kevin, if you remember, dinner was delicious. We won dinner.
I had a similar conversation with an Asian manufacturer in the mid 2000s too, so I've been through the same thing.
But
Joel,
this was culture in those days.
I've got a picture here you wanted me to show, so give me a second here, and I'll go ahead and pull it up.
Oh, let's show. Hopefully, you can show the gear we had at the first sessions.
Yep, I can show all of those as well.
And Kevin and I basically have weak backs from lugging these things all over the place because the gear in those days was not graceful. Kevin, do you remember what the monitor was on the left side, the little Pro monitor?
BVM 1910.
That was the thing. An approximate cost in the 90s?
$10,000.
No, the B, not the P, the BVM.
The BVM was 10 grand, I thought.
Oh, it's more like 22.
Was it?
PVM, the professional video monitor, was 10. The broadcast video monitor, its big brother, 22,000.
I know the difference between them, but you have a better memory for that than I do. I know that.
And let's go back and
it's about 60 grand, if I recall, and that's the 9.
Projector was 60. Jason, we lost the picture of projector.
Oops.
Back a slide. We lost the picture of projector. Here we go. So Kevin, the projector was 60 grand, but what did it take to make it work? Because that had line structure in it.
That was a $20,000 Ferrugia quadrupler.
So here we're looking at a $80,000 TV in the 90s, and we had the audio guys telling us that video is not high end. And this was a 300-pound projector. One of my favorite parts of the picture you're looking at on the projector is the little pop-out handle on the lower right corner. So we were working with Sound Advice here in Florida, working with them for one of our private sessions at a stereophile show. And I watched 3 people try and lift this projector up, and I just raised my voice. I went, "Stop now." And you couldn't really see that handle because Sony did such a beautiful job of integrating it. When you press the button to drop it in, it looked like a normal everyday part of the frame, but if you popped 2 buttons, it popped out. So we walked on water just showing them that you could pick this 195-pound projector up by 2 graceful handles, which still took 4 people, but now you had handles. And Kevin, how long did it take you to set one of those up? Because you set those things up at seminars. Take an hour or so to set that up?
Oh no, many hours. I mean, if you when you were doing it from scratch, if you were doing in the days when we got to HD TV and you had to do 2 separate formats from scratch with geometry, that was a full day's work.
Oh,
that was 8 hours easy.
And then the next morning, Kevin would come in before class and spend another hour. Because we run it overnight for stability. When the tubes were new, they weren't very stable, and Sony always sent us brand new pieces. In fact, Sony Professional in those days thought that what we were doing was remarkable. So I can give you the 20-plus years history of our company in one small slide here. What we basically do is work with the studios to calibrate the broadcast monitor, the little guy on the left side. That one is putting out an image that's based upon a calibrated screen in the hands of a very talented colorist. So it's a controlled environment, a controlled screen, putting out content that we know is reference. Our job is very simple. Match the projector to the little guy, and you're done. Now, that may take you 8 to 10 hours, but the whole job is match the reproduction device to the production device. And Kevin, what % of your business now do you think is studio-based, where you're working with content creators?
Well, this week, 0, but the calamity that we find ourselves in, I would say better part of 50 or 60% of my business is now post-production and production work in Manhattan.
So all of our top guys all over the world, and there aren't that many of them, but all our top guys are spending lots of time in studios. And I can tell you, we had a major scandal a little earlier this year with an HBO finale of Game of Thrones, where the script called for a dark, scary scene. And Kevin, how many visits did we make to HBO for their private sessions and all the calibrations you've done there? Is it dozens?
It started off a year and a half ago when we did the training with the emphasis on HDR for those guys in Manhattan, March of 2018. So that was 2 years ago.
When they opened up a new facility on the west side, how many monitors did you calibrate for them?
I did high 50s, 57 or 8, I forget the number, but I was doing that job when that last couple of episodes of the show was taking place.
Oh, you were there when that was going on?
Oh,
man.
yeah, and it was it was nuts.
And Kevin and I, we had one of the editors a TV shootout, so I could tell you point blank, if the script called for dark, scary scene, content creation made a dark, scary scene. Mm-hmm. Now, these are dark, scary scenes, so if you have a TV that's crushing blacks, you don't have a dark, scary scene. You just have a dark screen.
Right.
And you hear people's heads being chopped off. So this was one of the funniest things that ever happened in the history of calibration, and it reinvigorated our business. And Wired Magazine's editor from the UK got a hold of our guy, and they talked about the script calling for dark, scary scenes. So Wired actually got the story right, that if you didn't see something satisfactory on the screen, your TV needs to be set properly.
TV was the one that was the problem, not the program.
Robert Bush is on. I know he's been calibrating for a while too, and maybe these are CRT terms that I'm not familiar with. But he says adjusting yokes, not cokes. I'm not sure what that might mean.
Yeah, well, that's a projection setup technique. Good for you, Robert. I remember it, but I don't remember it fondly.
Guys, what were those days like? I mean, I'll tell you just from my experience. I teamed up with Joel in 2007 or 8, so the CRT days were long gone for me. The first paying customer I ever had was on a Samsung Plasma. So I was just curious from your guys' standpoint. You always hear these stories about with a 3-gun CRT rear projection TV, you had to take the back off and line it with this black stuff, and the geometry was a nightmare. It was dangerous. So what were those days like?
Let's start with the projector that you're looking at, the big Sony, the 9-inch one in front of you. They were notoriously unstable and unreliable because people did not how to adjust the interior yokes. You'd open that box up, and depending upon your screen sides, you'd be moving the tubes left and right to match the center one. Or you could be a know-nothing dangerous person and electronically move them with the magnets that were an electromagnetically focused projector. So when I said Robert Bush work up in Northern California, he'd be hours mechanically getting these things set correctly to the millimeter, which on screen would be, minute adjustments required electronically. So two things happened. One, the image became stable. So the electronic intervention was minimal by the electromagnetically focused piece. And since it wasn't driving the magnets so hard, it didn't overheat and it didn't fail. So failure rates, if you had someone like Robert or Kevin setting it up, were minuscule. These were professional products. And stability was superb. When it was installed badly, the stability was 30 days if you were lucky, if not 2 weeks, and the projectors ran hot and failed often. So these were not for amateurs. They were professional products, but they were the mainstay of the high-end home theater. And Kevin, how many double stacks did you set up? Because these things on a good day put out maybe 300 lumens.
I didn't do more than a couple of them. One of them was for our old friend Stu Kovac when I was working for Runco later on in the late 90s.
I had about a dozen of them here in Manchester on the Oceans I maintained, and they were wonderful machines for calibration business because when you had 6 guns being converged together, you got 30 days of perfection out of it if you were lucky. So these were monthly, multiple $1,000 calibrations. I miss that. But in the sense I miss it like a migraine because this was not pleasurable work. But this was our work. And Joel, all it came down to was matching the broadcast monitor.
There was a question that came in. Wasn't there something, and I'm probably going to butcher this, wasn't there something like a Scheimpflug adjustment?
Scheimpflug, yes. I was going to.
So I didn't butcher that?
Earlier. Nope. Scheimpflug was a fine focus adjustment at each one of at the blue and the red, I believe it was, right?
Robert says, Robert says,
but it's funny. I was cleaning out tools the other day in a toolbox, and I came across the very expensive long wrenches I had to buy for some of the European chassis to get to those nuts and bolts to do the Scheimpflug. And we all had the right tools to do them. But if you did that, you got focus. But you could also focus center and corners and middle, and you had to defocus a dot and then make it round. And there were astigmatic adjustments. You can make things. So getting those things working was a pleasure when they were fine, but it was a painful process. And what we learned is which of the calibrators had patience, because it was a learned experience. And the evening of the first day of ISF was a projector setup course to go over Scheimpflug and go over moving the yokes and go over the physical necessities of getting it set up properly so you could get stability. So this was not for the faint of heart. The clients were demanding, and the room had to be near perfect, because if you lit a match in the room with a CRT projector, you wiped out the picture. So now we're dealing, with the aspirations of 10,000 nits. And in those days, if you were very fortunate and the client let you put up a small enough screen on a big projector, you might get to 10-foot Lamberts.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Might. And theatrical was, 10 to 12, depending
Right.
what you're looking at. And pitch black rooms were the rule. But this gave us a business. And Kevin, do you still have any of those clients from the old days who had CRTs?
No, not any. I still have one up in Greenwich, Connecticut, who's been hounding me to come up and tweak his Electra home because he retubed it, and I told him I won't do it.
Oh, man.
No, but I've got a lot of the clients now. They're all watching major systems. They've gone to they're either watching large 3-chip DLPs or some type of LCOS from Sony or JVC. I've still got the same clients, and their
I
systems
keep trying to
are.
tell this guy though, digital's better, man. Give it up, and he won't. He absolutely won't do it.
Well, we had one guy who said the same thing. Kevin, you know what we did? We brought in a 3-chip and a bigger screen.
Threw it up there, and that was the end of it.
Left him there for a weekend, and his little girl came in and asked for Nemo, an ancient movie. She goes, "Daddy, Nemo looks good. Can we keep this?" So little kid sold a $150,000 system. But
Nice.
this guy had to see it.
What were the tools like back then? I know I've seen pictures of this Philips kit, over the years, but I've never actually seen one in person. I think, Kevin, you still have one in your attic somewhere, right?
I do have it, yeah.
I've got two, because we use them in classes, and this is one half of the kit. This was the analyzer. That little trigger you had there created suction, so you stuck it on a screen, pulled the trigger, and it stuck on there. There's your generator. In the early days, very few of us had that, but I didn't trust discs or disc players, because the couple of discs, in fact, I funded one of them, and it had a problem with it. We never fixed it. It just kept running with the problem on the disc, and this showed us what was wrong with the disc. But these were the tools of the trade, and it was over $10,000 in those days.
So these tools were 10 grand in the 90s.
Yes.
That's right.
And there was another tool. If you go back to your analyzer, there was another tool where instead of using the head with the suction cup, you had this big Cyclops head of 3 sensors, because this had an RGB sensors built into the head. There was a projector one with 3 Cyclops type things, 3 eyes that covered the guns, and then you could balance them out themselves. And that was only half the problem. We had to have an optical comparator that I stopped building. My accountant convinced me I was losing $100 on each one, and we're selling it for $400. He finally added up. He said, "Are you an idiot? I got to have it." He goes, "Well, you have it. Stop building them." And we built about 500 of those things, but we all needed them. It was a way of setting up for the screen. And it's what you would do right now called a profile.
Yeah.
Right.
So the Philips had a learn mode. We were profiling back then. And right now, Kevin, what percent of the TVs you work on do you do a profile for?
Oh, nearly. I would say almost 100. I check every one of them with the profile for a particular model, and if the deviance is close enough, I don't bother. But if it goes beyond 0.003 on either axis on white or color, I will just redo it.
So and basic
I use it every single day that I work.
That's basic class work for us. We basically tell people, unless it's the same TV 30 days later, do a profile again. It takes 2 minutes. And Jason, what percent of your TVs do you profile when you calibrate?
All of them, every single time.
Okay, yes.
It's just so easy now, and I just do it. It helps me sleep better at night. Knowing that it's right. But and keep in mind too, Joel, that one thing that I always like to touch on, just because two TVs next to each other, just because they're the same model, same manufacturer, the characteristics of each panel is a little different. So I still will take a separate profile, even though it's the same model TV.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 2 here that just came in that are aimed at CES, both same manufacturer, both different profiles.
Right.
Mm-hmm. They're pre-productions. They come from 2 batches. They don't match.
Doesn't match. Yeah.
Same model, same manufacturer. So we started profiling back with the optical comparator, and then a couple of us would invest in the old photo research machine, which was insane. And what Jason's bringing up right now brings up a very sore spot for me. We got a phone call from the belly of the beast in Seattle. to go visit Microsoft and talk to them about image quality, which I was ready to unload on people with, because we were working with Windows Media Video, which was a very good codec in those days, to try and get HD on a disk. And a couple of PC manufacturers were building media center computers. And the variation from video card to video card was terrible. Most of them wouldn't do compliance with Rec 709, above white, below black. They were just not video machines. So I go in and blast them, talking about their hardware quality, the video quality, the video cards. Their comment is, hey, we don't make video cards, we don't make computers, we want Windows Media to work. You want to help, or you want to pick on them? I go, well, we need to put in test tools into Windows to prove that the deliverable doesn't match content. They went, done. Do it. And I said, okay, but we can't put in geek-type color bar test patterns. It's got to be for consumers. So what you're looking at here is an invention I call a human test pattern. And if you're not compliant with the standards that create the content, you won't see any buttons on the shirt. It'll just be clipped into white. And by the way, this still is useful to this day. If anyone's on the session right now and they're on a Windows computer, if you jump into the search on the lower left and type in calibrate display color, there you go. It's in about 300 million computers.
That's all.
And the cool thing was, I was asked to come back in 30 days, write up some storyboards for human test patterns, and we'll negotiate a contract. So I came back thrilled. I'm saying, okay, going to help put the kids through school. Microsoft's got, $100 million in cash. I need some. Big client. So walk in, show them the storyboards, and I said, let's talk about the contract. And they gave me a contract to sign. I said, no, we're here to negotiate a contract. They said, that's right. We write it, you sign it.
That's a negotiation.
Negotiations. So I said, well, that's very similar to the number I was thinking, but it's missing a zero.
Yeah.
At least 1 0.
Yeah.
And that comment was, well, this will be good for you. Calibrators will be good for you. And it'll be in millions of computers. And you're going to calibrate through computers, because the media center one day is going to be a big part of home. So yes, we did it, because I couldn't say no. And Media Center division morphed. They failed miserably, but I had 4 Media Center computers in my theater in those days, all ready for DirecTV, none of whom signed with DirecTV, all of whom changed their characteristics to come on a Windows update. And the Media Center group is still intact under a different name. They're called Xbox.
Yeah.
And these guys do know video. So we also had a young engineer working in Microsoft Studios those days that some of you may know from a very superb family of discs by Stacy Spears, who helped us on this. But these human test patterns help us do black level, white level. They had a grayscale tool, and they're still in Windows. They're handy. So if you're ever doing a presentation like Kevin and I and Jason do, you're going into a facility, you can at least set white level and black level in about a minute.
Yeah.
So useful tools, but again, nothing's changed. You want to get the game to look like it looked on content creation. So if you're playing Halo or something like that, there'll be a slider in the beginning that'll let you set black level, because it'll have a little note that we wrote up working with the group there, the Halo group, and it said, one line says should not be seen, one says should barely be seen, one says should be seen. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, if you're playing Halo and you don't do that, you're going to die.
You're dead. Yeah. Yeah.
Someone's going to shoot out of the shadows. Your butt's going to get shot. Yeah. You'll never see it coming. It's kind of like the Game of Thrones. You have to have black level set.
Right,
so
right.
This is a sore chapter as far as return on investment, but I learned a lot here, and I made a lot of good clients on the computer side.
Joel, Robert says that he still has his original ISF optical comparator.
All right. Good for you.
Me too. Tell him I'll give him $10 for it.
That was originally when I first learned about display calibration. I was working at Sound Advice at the time here in Florida, and one of our sales guys who had been around for a long time was talking about it, and said, yeah, this guy comes out to your house. He spends about 8 hours. He's got this special machine he looks into to make sure the gray is balanced out. And, $800 later, your picture's perfect. And that was the optical comparator, right? They were looking inside the thing and then looking with their eyes at the screen. And
that's how you did a profile with your Philips. There was a Minolta piece of gear in those days, which was also superb, but it wasn't battery powered. You had to plug it in.
Yeah.
So the studios, the TV studios, would use a mix of Minolta or Philips. In the field, we used the Philips just because it was battery powered. Big difference. and they had the projector accessory, which Minolta did not. But add a projector accessory now, looking at $14,000-$15,000 worth of gear.
Sure. Yeah, Robert just chimed in too. He said he actually had the first one that was made, so he had the really original one. That's awesome.
And it helped. And this was our business in those days.
Sure.
And in reality, our business hasn't changed. We're still matching monitors for content creation. The big difference is we now have a lot of people in content creation calibrators.
Tons.
Yeah. And Jason, you've been with us at many sessions.
Oh, yeah.
We have people coming from studios all over the world into ISF sessions.
Well,
and what's driving them in is HDR more than anything else.
When we're especially when we're in California and New York and places like that, sometimes half the class will be post-production people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool.
I remember the first time we had Jason in front of a group of about 15 metropolitan New York City colorists, and you were a little intimidated at the moment until you realized that they needed to know what you know, that you don't know what they know, but they need to know what's in your head.
Exactly.
And he still talks to some of those people. He did a great job in that session. That was great.
Joel, we have an entire session in one of the 4 that we're going to do on this document that you see on the screen right now, but I know you wanted to kind of touch on it just a little bit while we were here today.
Well, I was asked by CEDIA a long time ago if I would serve on a committee to sort of make sense of home theater.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked me, what are the fundamental questions? Now, Kevin and I have been setting up theaters together. He's doing a ton in New York. He's been in a lot of celebrity homes in New York. And, I asked him and a few other people, what are the fundamental questions when you're talking to a client about a theater? So I came back with a number of scenarios for them. And I said, okay, here are the fundamentals that you have to answer when you're building a custom home theater. 1, how big should the screen be?
Yeah, that's the first one. Yep.
How high should the screen be?
Mm-hmm.
What shape should the screen be? How bright should it be? How much contrast should you have? And where should you sit? I said, okay, I'm done. Those are the fundamentals.
That's it. That's
and they said, now, where's the book? And I said, what? I said, where's the book you go to for the answers? And I said, you call my top guns. They all write the book.
Yeah.
All my guys who do this every day. Ask your top 10 CEDIA guys. There's no book. They said, well, there needs to be a book. Will you serve on the committee? So in those days, Kevin was working too hard for one major manufacturer who spoke for about 120% of his time. So Kevin couldn't join me, but I brought every smart person I knew onto the committee, including manufacturers, HBO guys, DirecTV guys, put together a brain trust. And I said, fine. And then they came back and said, well, we have good news and better news. I said, tell me about it. Good news is CTA. In those days, CEA, Consumer Electronics Association. That's the old name there. They're joining in. It's going to be an international bulletin for 2,000 manufacturers as well as 175,000 people going to a show. They go, that's cool. It's helpful. What's the better news? They go, you're chairing a committee. I go, no way. No way. Not with CEA. Why am I chairing a committee? They said, you're the only one who answers emails and makes any sense. Everyone else is talking technobabble. So, by the way, Jason's now on the new committee. He co-chairs the committee with me. So does Matt Murray, who works for AV Pro. We're about to finish off something called CEB 28. This is 23. By the way, CEB 22 is the audio side. It's a must-have document as this CEB 23, and the audio ones are being redone as we speak, with, again, some of the brightest people in the biz helping design a home theater audio design. We're about to finish the home theater video design redo, but we couldn't start for a very simple reason. HDR is now a big part of what we do. Wide color gamut's a big part of what we do. Bit depth's a big part of what we do. Sure. And we couldn't get any of that stuff to turn on reliably. So the CEB 28 is all about how to make it turn on and how to make things switch between standard dynamic range, Dolby Vision, HLG, SL1 from Technicolor, and HDR10 Plus from Samsung and Panasonic. And Jason's written a significant part of that document. So everyone on the call, give him a hand, because Jason's put in innumerable hours to help write this. When you get the document, a lot of Jason in there. Dave Meyer from Australia is in there. We've got guys from Teledyne putting out some really good generators and analyzers. I've got Dolby guys, Crestron guys, DTS guys. We've got talent.
Still on that?
Yeah.
Is Rob still? Yeah, because I was on it with you for a little while. I just got overwhelmed. I couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah,
you jumped up.
Rob's doing a lot of the editing and all the grammar stuff and what he's
Right.
really good at.
Right.
So CEB 28 is going to be a segue into the rewrite of CEB 23, but the basic questions remain: how big the screen? Talk about where we came from. Kevin, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing on the left side there with the small shapes, the big shapes.
Color volume?
Because you live this world every day in the studios.
I do. Well, you're looking at BT709 standard dynamic range. That the BT709 is the color space for standard dynamic range HD TV. The bigger cube, of course, is BT2020, which is the container for the color for the new HDR. Well, it's not that new anymore, but high dynamic range. And we can do different color spaces within the BT2020 color space. The one that all of the wide color gamut content is mastered to now is what we call P3, which is a DCI color space, which is in between the two. It's too bad there isn't a representation of it in between the two, but you can see Jason taking the cursor.
Yeah.
It's sort of, it's much bigger than 709, but quite a bit smaller than 2020. So we're dealing with much wider color gamut today, and that's frankly, that is for me one of the number one aspects of what makes HDR so exciting to the eye.
Kevin and Joel, did either one of you guys happen to catch the last Super Bowl in HDR?
No, unfortunately, my Apple TV platform screwed me on that deal. I was not happy about that. They couldn't
same scenario, but we got good feedback and some on the color at least, but if not anything on the resolution, the bit depth, but the color was looking good.
I'll tell you what, though, I did see an HDR. It was a college football game in New Jersey about a month and a half. It was like November 2019 at a client's house on an LG OLED I calibrated, and it was in HDR, and it was shockingly good looking. I was floored by how good that
Jason,
looked.
I don't know if I have anybody to call here from the British Isles, but I've been over there a few times watching the BBC, who was one of the co-inventors of HLG, hybrid log gamma, and the Super Bowl was not in HLG, it was in HDR, up-converted HDR. I'm going to live with that for a while, but seeing native HLG 4K over the BBC player in their TVs over there is 4K Blu-ray quality in sports.
Yeah.
We're gonna melt people. People are never going to leave home.
The thing that was getting me, why I was able to watch the Super Bowl in HDR with a 4K Roku, and the red of the Chiefs jerseys, I've never seen that red before on TV, and the grass and just everything just looked so much more natural and so much more real, and just seeing those really deeply saturated colors, dark and bright, there's nothing like it, man. It's so cool.
Now, Jason, if you could take your mouse, take it to the bottom of the container and show people what's missing there. There's still a whole bunch of colors missing in the greens.
Right. So
and there's been a lot of people. A lot of people have been whining about the 2020 model on two counts. One, I hear people whining that it's a single wavelength at the green at the tip, and it's going to be miniatures, and people are going to see it differently. And who cares? It's going to be much better than we had before. But all these colors are missing, and there's a bunch of reds missing, and purples missing too, and magentas. What this was aimed at was not filling the CIE chart. It was aimed at another concept. We don't have time for it to hear, but if you guys will Google Pointer's Gamut from Michael Pointer from 1980, that's been a challenge that 2020 met. So this is a superb body of work. Will we get to 2020 color this week? No, but we'll get there. It was designed to be compatible with both laser and quantum dot technology. So we have two technologies that can do it one day. And 10,000 nits, there was a 10,000 nit flat panel at 2 CSs ago by Sony. And it was not blindingly bright. It was just easy to watch. We're nowhere near 10,000 nits to anything in consumer, but we're over 2,000 for consumer.
Right.
And being that we all grew up in the world of, Kevin, you've calibrated a number of CRT monitors. If you're lucky, did you get 100 nits out of them?
Something about that, yeah. If you're lucky, that's about right.
When it was new. Before it got old, any. So when it was new, a new one.
Yeah, right. So for about 60 days.
Yeah, so you knew $10,000 and $20,000 broadcast monitors gave us 100 nits. Now we're talking, 1,000 nits 10 times, or 4,000 nits 40 times, or 10,000, that's 100 times the dynamic range of the old system. So even at 10 times, we're spectacular units, but we will grow into this system. So you're looking at, where we came from and where we're going. This is where we are right now. There's a Where's Waldo cartoon.
Yeah.
I'm there someplace.
Right
but,
there.
We've got one of our instructors holding my CS200 there, someone else with photo research.
Here's
This was
Jeff
Shanghai group. We get large classes. Jeff Murray over there has been my partner in crime in a lot of Asian courses. These guys will not touch a flat panel. Neither will these guys. They only do projectors.
Really?
It's a strange scenario. Ask them, okay, you're putting a projector in a home. And Kevin, I'm going to ask you a question because you've done thousands of projectors. Have you ever found a home where the only TV in the house is a projector?
Have I ever been in a house
where the only television is a projector? Or if there's a projector, can you be sure there'll be more TVs?
Usually, yes, 99% of the time there are many more TVs, not just one.
Yeah,
they're all over the house. Absolutely. So
definitely
so. Big job.
Always so. I'm trying to convince most of my, we've got almost 500 calibrators in China now. They don't do flat panels. They only do the projector and they go out. They don't do multi-room. They're big game hunters.
Okay.
So someone had a question here about the 2020 standard. In 2012, the International Telecommunications Union, the ITU-R, and we don't have time to get into the -R is, but that had a lot to do with another color consortium that came in. We wrote a standard for the planet for 193 countries for UHD, called the State of UHD. And you can Google it. It's public domain stuff because it comes from the ITU, sort of the United Nations type function. And the broadcast television, BT.2020, that's the standard that will be the final chapter of the 2012 system. We will get to this color space model, and then we'll go to the next system after that. But we're nowhere near ready with this. Kevin, do you know of anybody in content creation with a 2020 system for creating 2020 color yet?
One. It's a laser. It's a laser projector. Only one.
Yeah. And there's no quantum dot broadcast monitors yet. But again, we will grow into this system. So the question was a good question. The broadcast television 2020 standard is the goal of the 2012 ultra high definition television standard. And we'll grow into it step at a time.
This guy is sort of a forward-thinking guy. He's got a 13-foot wide screen, and he does his grading on it. But, of course, it may be BT 2020 capable, but he's not working in that space. He's working in P3 because he does a lot of work for Netflix. But that's an interesting system.
Yeah, and we'll get there. As opposed to our early technology with NTSC, where we designed a color system we could never build, this 2020 document from 2012, we have the technology to do it, neither affordably nor anything Energy Star will sanction at the moment, but we will get to 2020 one day. It's within our engineering capability. It's not priced aggressively or thermally acceptable, but we'll be able to get to that system. And Jason, your old alma mater.
Yeah, that was, I spent a lot of time with these guys.
This was one of our Geek Squad classes at Best Buy.
So this was after I had separated ways with the company. This was our first class back with them under the new leadership. So I'd been teaching the class for about 3 or 4 years anyway. We separated, and lo and behold, as luck would have it, I come back to teach the class anyway.
So Jason, you've trained over 1,000 Best Buy calibrators?
Easily. We're going back to 2012, so easily. Yeah.
And there have been people all over the world telling me, well, great idea, I love the whole thing, but people just won't pay for calibration. They want it for free. And my answer has been, well, they want everything for free. They want the cables for free. They want the delivery for free. They want the switch. Of course they want it for free, but if they understand what it does and you show them what it looks like calibrated, they'll pay.
Sure. So
this is now thousands per day of people paying, and there's no one on the floor of Best Buy. How many salespeople have you trained at Best Buy, Jason?
Not as many as the technicians, of course, but it's hard to put a number on it just because we talked to so many people over the years. But
is there a major sales training program to explain calibration to people, or customers just know what it is?
Some stores are better than others. It's big box retail, but Some people come in already knowing what it is. Some people don't have any idea at all. So we do kind of rely on the salespeople to explain it.
And they're successful at it.
Yeah, the people who are good at it are fantastic at it.
And we've had doubting Thomases all over the world just telling us when people won't pay for the service. But when Kevin and I were back in the audio days, I mean, we had some really good dealers who were doing a good job on audio setup in people's homes. And the margins were so large there, that was part of what you just threw in. But unless you set speakers up properly, unless you wired things properly, unless you balance things to the room, the audio didn't sound quite good. And Kevin, some of your setup guys at the Absolute Sound were pretty awesome.
Oh, audio guys? Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I would walk into a system at the Absolute Sound and go listen to a reference system after listening to the same system at a trade show and saying, I don't think those will ever sell a pair. They're terrible speakers. And walk into things where the Absolute Sound guy set them up and went, oh my goodness, that's an unbelievable speed. Same junk, same electronics set up. So we sort of knew where we were going with video based upon what we knew we could do with audio. And to this day, I mean, the audio business is kind of fractured. The high end's gone, and it's become something that supports video. And right now, we have this whole conversation with my friends from the press, what's more important in home theaters is the audio or the video. And of course, I'd be one-sided. On the other hand, I'm an audiophile. But I do know that if it sounds really, really good, it makes it look better.
There you go.
Definitely.
And my audio guys will tell me, well, if the picture's good, it makes it sound better. And there's a sort of symbiosis. You need them both, guys. So Jason's on both sides of the fence like I am. So unless the audio is flawless and the video is flawless, you don't have a system.
Yep.
And nowadays, unless the HDMI is working properly, you don't have a system because you can't turn HDR on. So Jason, we've gone way over here, unfortunately.
Yeah. I was going to say, guys, if you have any questions for Joel or myself or Kevin, feel free. We went just a little over the allotted time today. No big deal, though. Excellent subject matter. But if you guys do have any other questions to pop in here over the next couple minutes, we'll surely take those from you. Feel free.
Jason, I'd like to touch on one thing that I've been doing here.
Sure. Go for it. Yeah.
And I will tell you what came out of a huge plague in the 1600s. A young student at Cambridge had to go up to his country house to be quarantined to get away from the Black Plague. And a young Isaac Newton was stuck in his house, bored out of his mind. So he poked a hole in a shade and let a little light through, put it through a prism, made a rainbow in it and put it back through the prism. So the sequestering this house from the plague gave us, his rainbow. So I've been stuck here in the house dreaming about an online ISF level 1. Jason and I have been talking about this. Bob Fucci, as some of you know, talked about it. Yeah. We've got 11 modules coming. I'm on the 11th right now. I was hoping to finish this by maybe CD in September. I'll be done next week. So there will be an online level 1 course. And when Jason and Kevin are teaching the level 2 and 3 classes, it's going to be a prereq.
Yep.
And awesome. One of the things I've written down as an instructor, you're not supposed to be stumped. Yeah. And I keep telling Jason and Kevin the same thing. Periodically, someone's going to come into the class that knows something you don't, or wants to know something you don't, and stumping the instructor is not a problem. It just means you have to do some research. So all the times I've been stumped became rich content points, not all of which I can add to a finite, verbally taught one-day class. All the questions that bug me because I should have known that, like what's the R in ITUR? It's all in the online.
Yeah, Robert just says nobody knows it all, and Robert, I'll 1,000,000% agree with you on that. To know it all, we need 10 or 20 of us in a room together. No one person knows everything, and I find myself, and Joel and Kevin, I know you guys are like this too. I want to learn more every day, and especially now with HDR, it's like there's just every day there's just something new, and it's just been totally cool for our industry. Wayne has a great question, Joel, for you. How do we get started with getting ISF certified?
Well, soon you'll be able to take the level 1 online, and CEDIA is going to be launching that. We're doing it in conjunction with CEDIA. They've got a great animator happening it, and then Kevin and Jason, and we'll have people all over the world. We've got 2 guys in England right now, 1 guy in Australia about to come online. They've got a really good instructor in China, so we'll have instructors all over the country teaching level 2 and 3. So your online will be a series of 10 to 15 minute snippets that take about 12 hours. So some people will binge it, some people will take a week or 10 days. Doesn't matter. It's all there for you. And the online, you can't fail. Only if you guess on an answer of a question, and if you guess it wrong, we give you the right answer.
Right. So a question comes in for Kevin. I think this would be a really good one for Kevin to take. He says, are directors / cinematographers / directors of photography, etc., actively involved with the work that the ISF is doing?
I don't know that. Well, yeah, if you want to consider that many colorists and people in that industry go through the seminar for training, that would be one way. They also, of course, they know the value of having their displays set up to spec. How much an individual colorist or whatever understands technically about it varies widely, but I guess the answer to the question is yes, somewhat. Sure.
Good. Jim says, ISF certification has always been a big, scary, expensive endeavor. What resources can someone say, like an end customer, like a tech guy at a school, what can they do to learn and hone in their skills without having to take the plunge with more money, and they get training and stuff? So I think what the question is how can somebody kind of get started down this path without running out and immediately buying a bunch of expensive gear and taking the course? I'll just give you, Jim, some things I like to look at. There's some excellent YouTube channels out there these days that cover a lot of this stuff. Vincent Tio from HD TV Test, Darko from Croatia, he's got a great channel. AV Pro Murideo, we've got a ton of this stuff on there as well. Portrait Displays has a ton of stuff. Steve over at Light Illusion has a ton of stuff on his YouTube page. So there's a lot of content out there, Jim, if you want to at least start reading and investigating the industry and trying to figure out what you need to do to get to where you want to be. There's tons of stuff out there, Jim. And if you want any specifics or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to share.
And Jason, his question's on point. It's one of the reasons we've been aspiring to do the level 1 online for probably 5 years.
Right.
And it's been me locked in a house 8 to 10 hours a day.
That's impossible.
It's like birthing a pachyderm, getting this thing. And by the way, Jason's editing some of these courses for us as well. So is Bob Fucci. So getting this thing online is the hardest thing I've ever done. But for someone who just wants to get started, it's where you start.
Yeah,
it's all the fundamentals. And it's 11 modules. Are we going to be able to talk about that in another one of these sessions?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be able to go over module on another one of these sessions.
Sure. Stuart says he was in the second wave of Geek Squad ISF. So Stuart's going way back, probably 2009 or so. That's awesome. He's been asking for a refresher class for all those who started calibrating through Geek Squad. Any ideas for something like this? Stuart, I'll tell you, just from being in communication with the training team up at Corporate for Best Buy in Magnolia, they do have some great ideas and plans for refreshers for some of the agents who've been around from level 1 and level 2. So stay tuned for that. Once we figure out how we're going to do that, considering what's going on right now, that is something that's being very heavily talked about and definitely planned for, Stuart. So just stay tuned for that. Daniel says he took level 1 in April of 2004. That's awesome. He's looking forward to repeating it. Yeah, Daniel, no problem. A question I get a lot of times is, if I took level 1, does that mean I have to take level 2 and then level 3? The answer to that is no, guys. If you take level 3, that covers everything in level 1 and level 2. So right now you could do level 1 online or live with an AV Pro training course that we do, or you can just go in straight into level 3, and that covers everything in level 1 and level 2. So that's good. Wayne says, where should I keep in touch to see when these online training classes begin, and what is the cost? Joel, good question for you. When do you think the CEDIA stuff will be actually live?
I'll get my part over to our animator next week, so hopefully within 30 days. And what I've asked CEDIA to do is, while we're locked down, cut the price in half.
Oh, good.
I don't know if they'll go for it, but that's my request as of about 2 days ago.
Great.
So it's usually it's going to be a $600 course. While we're locked down, I want it to go half, and I think I can twist their arm on that.
Okay, cool. So Wayne, just stay tuned for that. Check the CEDIA website. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'll tell you what we know. Jim, Jim's here. Great, Jim Hevel. I was scheduled to see you guys at Chicago and at NEC. Unfortunately, that one had to be postponed. That was going to be my birthday class, which would have been really cool, but of course.
Apologies.
Yeah, that's okay. But yeah, Jim, we'll see you. We'll see you eventually. Thanks for watching the webinar. And that really looks like, guys, those are the last questions. Stuart also asked, what are your thoughts on the ability to auto-calibrate the C9 from LG? Stuart, the auto-calibration stuff has been really, really good. I can tell you right now, if you go to the Murideo YouTube page, There's at least 2 videos on there of me doing the AutoCal, so feel free to check those out. And let's see, we'll take 1 or 2 more questions, guys, and then we'll wrap up for the day. What specific refreshers such as HDR for people who are level 3? Joel, do you have any ideas where people can learn more about HDR if they've already done level 3, if they want to go even deeper into HDR?
Once we can do a level 3 course without the level 1, we'll spend a lot more time on the back half of the back day on AutoCal.
Right.
We've been pressed for time to do that. So one of the things we could do with the online is free up more hands-on time. So
Yes.
the revised courses post-online level 1 are all going to be hands-on. You're going to walk in, Jason or Kevin is going to sit down with you, get your generator or analyzer hooked up, do a profile, and go to work.
Boom. Hit it right away. That's great.
So we'll be able to cover a lot more of the AutoCal that we didn't have time for with the old format.
Yep. And Steve had asked if there's any specific refreshers for HDR if you've already taken level 3. Can you think of any other resources?
No, you'll get a significant discount on retaking level 3, and it's going to be more hands-on than ever before.
Good.
And
Good,
since
good.
CalMan changes regularly, the refresh is a handy thing to do.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sure. Well, guys, that looks like the end of the questions. Thank you so much for hanging out. I know we ran a little bit over, but again, excellent content. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, Joel and Kevin. Joel, you and I have 3 more of these scheduled. We're going to cover things like top 10 HDMI failures. We're going to dive deep into that CEB document. We've got.
I want to cover more of the online class. I'll give you some of the promos in the online that list the topics, and we can get people some previews of what it looks like. I'll take some screenshots of the onlines.
And then our 4th session in this series, Joel, will be all about, nowadays we're talking about giant screens and different aspect ratios and stuff. I think Kevin's going to try to make that one as well. So,
I'm gonna,
guys, so stay tuned for the rest of these guys. They're going to be a lot of fun. If you visit the AV Pro website or the Murideo website, you can see the training schedule right there, register for all the future webinars and whatnot. You can also see all of the recorded ones. So feel free if you want to go back and check some of those older ones out, no problem. And that's all I got for you guys. Any final words, Joel and Kevin? Thank you so much.
Final words I'll say are be safe, be well, be careful.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks, everybody that attended. It was fun, and stay safe.
Cool. Thank you guys so much. We will see you on the next webinar. Have a nice night.
Thanks.